Hello and welcome back to my channel and my tree series. Today's sea glass tree is made with green sea glass over a silicone coated styrofoam form. So you can use any kind of styrofoam. You can use that green kind or that white kind. It's just a nice form to work over. So I'm mixing liquid silicone with dishwashing soap in water, and you knead it, knead it, knead it, knead it, and keep putting it in water and adding more soap until it becomes kind of a nice mushy mess. And then you smooth it over your styrofoam form and let it sit for a day. Now I have my form and I'm making a string of glass beads to go around my tree, kind of like a garland. And I'm using any form that you have in the house that makes the right size circle. I'm using about 20 gauge pure bare copper wire and just twisting the wires with needle nose pliers or with my hands to make a nice chain of little loops for my glass. I'm taking 7/32 inch. This happens to be black coated copper foil. Now you can use regular copper foil. You don't have to use black coated. I like the back and the back backed. I like the back so that if any light gets through them, they still look black. So you wrap these little glass globs that you can get lots of different places you can get them, and they come in different sizes. They come typically they're 3/4 of an inch in diameter, but these are a little bit smaller. So these are 1/2 inch diameter. So it's whatever size you want, and they come in all different colors. They're called dragon tears or flat marbles or globs. There's lots of things they're called. So you just wrap them around, and you notice that the reason I use only half the diameter or the width of the foil was so that it doesn't encroach upon the whole circle too much. It just kind of does the edge. Now, of course, the problem with only doing the edge of any glass instead of wrapping around the glass is if you heat it up too much when you're soldering it on, they can pop out. So you got to be a little bit more careful with that. Now at the bottom of my tree, that ring around the bottom, that's a piece of 16 gauge bare copper wire. Now you can use and I had to like kind of wind that garland around it to help hold it together while it was soldered. Um, you can use macrame hoops that I often use, and then you're going to have to foil the macrame hoops with your copper foil because they will not solder to your solder. They're made out of some kind of alloy metal. So that's the nice thing about using copper wire and making a hoop yourself is you don't have to then foil it. But of course, the nice thing about using a macrame hoop, or they called macrame or dream catcher hoops, they come in all different sizes. The nice thing about those is they are perfectly round and they're already round for you. You don't have to like make them into a circle. They're a lot sturdier than a lot of the ones that I make myself. What I'm attaching right now are the sea glass. So the sea glass, and I do have a video on sea glass, but these are bought sea glass, and if you buy sea glass from like a big box store or Amazon or anything like that, I like to make sure that it's like sea glass that's different thicknesses. It's not like flat glass that's been tumbled. It actually has some different shapes to it. So that's really up to you. It's not really sea glass like from the sea, natural, but it looks good. And I tumble it more. I tumble it for another week so it becomes smoother also. So what I'm doing is I use some wires to help hold my little circle at the bottom to hold it to the bottom of my tree form. So I'm soldering on these different shaped sea glass globs and my red ornament circles. So I'm soldering them on, and I'm going to end up filling all those gaps between things because it's going to end up being a solid tree. So the light has to go through the glass, it can't creep around it. But for now, I'm just soldering on various pieces. Now I have to either hold my pieces of glass up with like push pins or straight pins, which is one good reason to make my form over styrofoam, or I am going to have to support this. You can see a push pin over there on the right side, or I'm going to have to try to support this garland somehow as I'm making it, because it does get quite heavy because it is, made out of glass. So as you can see, I'm making kind of like a straight line going up this area out of my glass. And I'm going to use that to kind of solder the tree where I want that garland and the pieces of glass. So I would suggest foiling lots and lots of pieces of glass and the circles, but the glass especially because they come in all different shapes, and I have foiled them with a third of the width, sometimes a half of the width, but usually a third of the width of the 7/32 inch foil. And the reason why I make a whole bunch of them is that when you're trying to put little pieces in these gaps, you want to have a bunch to choose from because, of course, it's sort of like making a puzzle. They come in all different sizes and shapes, and you have to, choose which ones you want to use where. Now, right now, I am obviously trying to fill in all the gaps. So I made those long stripes to kind of hold it together, but now I need to fill in every gap between these pieces of glass. This is the inside of it, and I needed to like fill those circles, um, those holes. Now, right now I have some crystals that I made like little loops, and I am soldering the little loops together to make like little ornaments that are going to be hanging. So I have the garland going on, and then I have all these crystal ornaments that I'm making. So I made like little loops of copper wire, and then I made these little straight things with another little loop, and I'm heating up the joint between some of the stained glass and putting it in. Now, obviously, it sometimes gets hot and it will make everything else solder together, and you want to make your little ornament to just kind of hang. So somehow get it done without heating up the ornament too much to solder it stiff. I want that to be flowing, freely. So the little joint, I have to solder the joint together, and then I need to stab it through a hole in the tree itself so that I get a whole bunch of them hung where I want to. I'm using mainly like little teardrop crystals and some little heart-shaped crystals, and I have them in all different colors, which just makes it fun. Then I try to position my tweezers to hold them correctly, like I showed a few minutes ago. Figure out where I'm going to put them. If I heat up the solder joint a little bit, I can just kind of slide this little wire that I made into position, and I will then have my ornaments hanging freely from my tree. So I did that all around my tree, so I have lots and lots of ornaments hanging just for a little bit of bling on my Christmas tree. Now, I did wash the tree before I added my ornaments, so that's why it doesn't look quite as slimy and icky as it did earlier. Right now, I am making the star on the top of the tree. I am making it with a bunch of chandelier parts. As you can see, I'm wrapping the end of the chandelier crystal with a very thin strip of foil just so I have something to attach it to. So I'm wiring these crystals in place and I'm soldering them because I figured that'll make them like all stay together where they need to. So I'm using wire and solder to hold them together. So I have two different size crystals and I made a circle as I showed a few minutes ago. And now I'm kind of making an arc um, with some more crystals. And I'm using some thin, it's probably like 22 gauge wire to kind of hold it together. And then I'm soldering various areas wherever I can get the solder together to hold it together. So that's the trouble with making these stars at the top of these trees, is trying to come up with a way to make a star to look the way I would like it to and stay together. So I'm using different size glass crystals, as you can see, and holding them together with wire. The foil didn't stay on the crystals all that well, but I think it helped with the overall sturdiness of the shape when I was done. So I'm kind of like using the wire and just kind of winding around to try to hold it together. So you can see how I'm holding that arc of of the of the crystals in place, and then I'm soldering that bunch of the arc together. So I'm trying to solder the wire and the foil. And yeah, I had to go back and forth on how I was doing this. And this seemed like the best way to keep these pieces together. And you really need to have the correct size chandelier parts to have the look that you want. So, I wanted to have all the little spikes to be somewhat the same size, but not all the same size. And then when I was done with that, I put flux all over it that I could, and then stabbed solder into whatever area I could get the solder to go into. Or just kind of like trying to like open up any area that was loose, hold my crystal the direction I wanted it to be, and then add the solder. And after doing it wherever I could, I ended up with the shape I wanted. I ended up moving that wire over a little bit so I could get into the inside and really fill up the every joint that I could possibly get to make my nice little star topper. And now I'm putting my topper onto the tree. I'm trying to figure out, where am I going to put it? What would look best? I'm using solder to hold it together. And then I decided after soldering it basically into place that maybe I needed a little more to secure it. So I reached underneath and tried to get any place they possibly touched so that it would be sturdy. And so here's my tree when it's done. When it's lit up, the green ended up looking, when it's lit, kind of blue or very blue. So it's not as green as I thought it would be, but I still like it. It's very pretty. I have white lights inside, so it's interesting that it came out so blue looking. But I think it's very pretty, very Christmassy. You can see some of the green showing through in areas, especially at the top where the lights didn't go quite as didn't go up and inside as much as I wanted it to. But here is some of the trees that I made in this series, and that's the one that I'm highlighting right now, is the one right in the middle. And thank you for watching my series. I have some more trees coming up next, and so stay tuned for some more pretty Christmas trees. Bye-bye for now.